Welcome into Point Blank, brought to you by Fitz Roofing. I'm Brandon Strange, and I'm joined as always by Joel Blank. Joel, I am back, and it's good to have you here, and it's good to talk some baseball because we're going to preview the Astros series. Let's talk about why we shouldn't look past the series with the Mariners and onto the Dodgers. There's a lot of important information to be gathered here. And one disclaimer we need to say right out of the gate is we're talking about starters and matchups that are based off of MLB's projected starters. And as they say in wrestling, card is subject to change. We're going to get an up-close look at the two aces, Greinke and Verlander. JV is the reigning Cy Young, recovering from growing surgery, I should say. Greinke's coming off a strong Game 7 in the World Series. What should we be looking for in these guys?
I think you're going to be looking for just endurance, where they are in terms of early in the season, where you had a month or so to get into your groove for the long, grueling Major League Baseball season of 162 games. But in this case and in this scenario, you need to be on your A game from the jump. And that means that both guys are going to have to be able to go deep into games. They're going to have their best stuff, and they're going to have results for a team that is going to be results driven, just like every team in the major leagues. The 162 game schedule, you could afford a 7, 8, 9 game skid, and you could also get on a 7, 8, a 9 game winning streak. Those are the kind of things that can kill you now in an abbreviated season. People forget the Seattle Mariners started the season last year 13-2. If that happens this year, I hate to break it to you guys, they're a playoff team. Everything is going to be hyper-focused, everything magnified, and every game counts that much more.
So we talked about the two aces for Houston. Now let's talk about one of the big question marks, one of their big arms that's coming back from Tommy John surgery, in Lance McCullers. He starts in Game 2 tentatively, and it's based on Greinke's pitching schedule is why this lines up that way. But he's looking nasty early, has a new do, has a new pitch. What do you expect out of him this season?
Well, I expect great things based on what I've seen, but I also expect that the Astros are going to be hyper-focused on making sure that pitch count is to the pitch and it's enforced. And getting back to your first question, Brandon, because of the importance of Greinke and Verlander, the other thing is them going deep into games means you don't have to tax your bullpen, because if you are going to keep Lance McCullers on a pitch count, and like I said, for health reasons alone, you have to, then you can't tax your bullpen in other starts. Because of the uncertainty on the fourth and fifth starters as well, you're going to have to give Dusty Baker all the resources of having arms to go to in those situations. Therefore, it's important for Verlander and Greinke to go deep. It's important for Lance McCullers to maximize every pitch, because he's not going to be snapping off 30-some straight curveballs. And he's going to be on a pitch count that's going to affect him whether he's succeeding in looking for a win in a game or not. It doesn't matter, because you can't take that chance. There's no Garrett Cole coming through that door to be a big part of your rotation again this year. Therefore, McCullers is so important to this team. Dare I say, the most important player on this roster in terms of guys that can be the difference between them going deep into the playoffs and making a World Series run, or maybe not even getting there. It's all about Lance McCullers, and therefore you have to be hyper safe with everything you do with him.
He's added a new changeup to the repertoire, which we touched on. How important is it to have that second off-speed pitch, and one that doesn't put nearly as much torque on the arm like that curveball does?
You said it, Brandon. That's the biggest thing. A curveball, and he has one of the best in the game, but we saw what it's done to his arm over time. Now, a lot of guys come back from Tommy John surgery. They're better than ever before. They don't have any more problems. Their arm actually becomes stronger, and the curveball isn't an issue. But again, because we're not taking chances medically with Lance McCullers this year, the importance of adding another off-speed pitch means he has the ability to be deceptive without putting a lot of wear and tear and extra wear and tear on his arm. Advantage Astros, advantage Lance McCullers. If that pitch continues to be effective, hitters have never seen it before. That's going to keep them off balance. The fact that he can use it as much as he can use a curveball and not do as much damage or put as much strain on his arm, advantage McCullers, advantage Astros. And the fact that if he's healthy, you don't miss Garrett Cole nearly as much because you still have Zach Greinke, and that's a huge advantage for the Astros, especially because we don't know when Framber Valdez is going to find his ability to have his control, and we don't know when Urquidy's going to be a part of this team. So therefore, because of those question marks, McCullers is so important. That pitch is incredibly important to his success.
Well, it's interesting how the matchups are set up right now, because speaking of Tommy John, Taijuan Walker of the Mariners is coming off his own Tommy John surgery as well. So there's going to be surgically repaired ligaments all over the field. Their Game 1 starter, Marco Gonzalez, Houston's historically owned him. He's 0-4 with an ERA of +7 in 7 games. So if the Mariners are as bad as we think they are, the Astros can theoretically get into a groove early. But with a lot of these minor leaguers, there's a limited amount of scouting. How does that impact when you don't really know much about the guys who you're going up against?
I think it's more so about the pitching. You need to know about the pitchers because that's where every hitter is going to face a guy they haven't seen before. And that's going to be the biggest thing that they're going to have good scouting reports. They're going to have good intel in terms of what to expect, what's their go-to pitch, what are the kind of things so that pitchers can get that, so hitters can get the right frame of mind going into the box. From a hitting perspective, it doesn't matter who the minor leaguers are. You're facing Justin Verlander. You're facing Zach Greinke. Advantage Houston because of the fact that you have guys that these guys have looked up to and seen on TV, and now suddenly they're thrown into a big-time situation in a short season against a world-class type pitcher, and I think the Astros don't have to worry about that. Where the Astros have to do their intel and have to have the due diligence is they've got to be prepared for young pitchers they might not have seen before to know what to expect when they get in the box.
There doesn't seem to be any updates right now on Yordan Alvarez, and I wanted to ask you something specifically about the DH spot. But before we do that, why don't you give us a word from our friends at Fitz Roofing?
Absolutely. Fitz Roofing has been dedicated to us here at the station with SportsMap.com and also ESPN 97.5. They're also dedicated to the people of Houston, Texas, never more so than right now. With the rains that we've been having, if you found out you have a leaky roof or you're thinking about putting a new roof on your business or your family house, there's only one place to call. It's Fitz Roofing. 832-521-3001. Call them. You get a free no obligation inspection. They come to you and they tell you what they can do, and then they go back to doing what they do best. If you want them to come back, you reach back out. They do fantastic work. They have the ratings to prove it, but the free no obligation inspection is where you can get all the information you need at no cost to you. It's Fitz Roofing, making a difference one home at a time.
So we mentioned Yordan Alvarez. He is a question mark right now health-wise. The Astros are going to face 2 lefties in this series, and so that also leaves a question mark at the DH. Who will we see in the DH spot for Houston in the series?
It's going to be interesting because the way Josh Reddick is hitting the ball in the preseason, it looks like Josh Reddick is going to not only be playing for a new contract, but he's going to force the hand of Dusty Baker to say, I dare you to find someone that you can replace me in the lineup with. So the early going, you put the veteran out there in right field. That means Kyle Tucker could be a guy that you could go to. Aladimus Diaz is hitting the ball very well right now. He could be seen as a guy that could be a DH as well. And they have the different resources so that they have opportunities to get people in the lineup where they really don't miss a beat. And with the rest of the lineup hitting the way they're hitting right now and everybody clicking before we even get to game 1, it's a good position to be in if you're Dusty Baker because you get a guy that otherwise could get stale on the bench. You keep them fresh and you realize no matter where you put them within that batting lineup, the rest of the guys are going to pick them up because guys like Springer and Altuve already look like they're in mid-season form. Brantley's hitting the ball well. Correa, a lot of expected. Bregman, we haven't really talked about that much, but he's been hitting the ball, especially for power. So that lineup is still going to be one of the best in the league, the best in the division, and I think they're going to be feared by a lot of teams. So I don't think they lose much, although they're going to lose it from a power perspective. That's what I mentioned most. Average is going to be there. Extra base hits are going to be there. But in terms of power, that's why you need Yordan long term.
No doubt about that. And now we're going to do that thing that we were telling people not to do at the beginning of the video, and that's we're going to look ahead because the way that the pitching matchups are set, it looks like this is going to set up basically for Framber versus Kershaw in game 1 of the Dodgers series, and that's not an ideal matchup for Houston. What would you have your eyes on in that matchup?
My eyes are solely going to be on the offense versus the Dodgers pitching because that's what's going to come down to in the postseason. And if good hitting can beat good pitching in this case, because Kershaw isn't what he used to be, but the Dodgers know that the Astros have seen him and they know what to do with him when they get in the box against him. And I want to see how this entire lineup faces good pitching because with the Mariners, you're really not getting, no matter who you call their ace and who their best pitchers are, they're not going to come up to the same level as the Dodgers or the Yankees or the teams that are favored to win it all. So I'm going to be looking at how the Dodgers pitching gets, how successful they are against the Astros lineup. And then if you get a case where Framber ends up, finding his control, because that's been his big issue, and he's able to get guys out on the Dodgers and one of the best lineups in baseball, that's an extra advantage for Houston because I don't think Framber is going to be in the rotation at the end of the year if all things happen the way the Astros would like. But if you know in the postseason that, hey, going back to the games at the start of the year, Fromber had success against the Dodgers. That's something Dusty's going to remember come playoff time if he does need a spot starter or someone to step in.